Hello and welcome to the 38th podcast, I believe it is, where today we are going to be talking about how do you decide which board games to buy. I am Steve, and today I am joined by...
Daryl!
Ian,
Yeah, together again.
Yay!
How
do
are
you
you
do you have any
guys?
complaints about the way I talked about you?
I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't hear you when you speak. I drown you out.
Oh,
So, much like those
That
annoying
be that'll
noises.
be why you're still so bad at games because you just don't take anything in.
Yeah, see, I just imagine you're like that nagging old wife that I don't have. But if I had one, I imagine you'd be like, "Oh my god, can you at least just look? If you come and march up the marginal line, at least what you'll do is." And I'm just like, "Yeah, whatever, dear.
What
We'll get some potatoes. It's
what
fine."
wife says that?
Well, no, but I imagine you're like my wife, and
Did
you
you
will be my
make
wife.
up Warhammer terminology for that sentence?
I don't know actually.
When
I'm
I
not 100%
walk
sure.
up the marginal line, that's either a
Yeah,
weird sex thing or you made stuff up for Warhammer.
I imagine that's what you would say to me at some
Okay.
point. So,
anyway,
yeah. So yeah, no.
anyway, I'll let you know what's been going on the website since the last podcast. One video to tell you about. We did an unboxing of Sumo Gnomes, but the tree trunk edition of it, which is very
yeah.
nice. I won't go into it too much because we're probably going to be talking about that again later on this podcast. So, to start things off, what we've been playing. Well, I'll start things
Okay,
off.
yeah.
As per usual, um, it's just been digital versions of board games, really, just been playing for me. Started off by playing Gloom online,
Ooh.
and it's you certainly need to play it with other people online rather than playing with the AI, because there's a certain degree of narrative building in
Yeah, yeah.
Gloom. For people that have never played Gloom before, what it is it's a game with like clear cards.
Beautiful
The
cards.
idea is that you have a family of 5 people, isn't it, Daryl? If I
Uh,
remember
I'm not
correctly.
100% sure. I think I had an expansion with mine. It's like
Yeah,
5 or 6, yeah, I think.
yeah. And the idea is to use the other clear cards that you have. You have a hand of them. The idea is to make them as miserable as possible, to make everyone else as happy as possible on the other players' families, and then kill everybody off, basically.
It's
So the
really good. It's a really good story-based game, almost in a way. Like you make
yeah,
up your
because
stuff
the
as you go.
kind of yeah, the idea is you're supposed to put these cards on top of other ones, and you're meant to make up a bit of a story as to what's happening to the people.
Mm.
Doesn't really work when you play against AI opponents because one, there's no real narrative thing. You know, if you've got a chat going, you can kind of maintain that online. But also, can you remember we had that chat a little while ago about how the AI sometimes gangs up on you? And I
Yeah, yeah.
think Ian said that we get quite salty about things. Like, it just sounds like there's kind of like a paranoia thing there. This definitely happens in Gloom. As in, a lot of the time, the only time you'd ever kill someone off in Gloom usually is if they already have a positive score, because the idea is you want as much of a negative score as possible by the end of the game. And you could have 3 AI opponents that all have massive negative scores. You can be sat there with all the pluses on you and stuff like that, and they continually just keep picking on you and not picking on one another, therefore kind of throwing the
I
game.
suppose their objective is to stop you winning as opposed to stop everyone else winning.
Yeah, so it feels like when you're playing it that it's more you're playing against a collection of AI rather than separate AI opponents, if that makes sense.
That sounds pretty
It's
punishing.
it's it was very punishing.
Yeah.
I I'll admit I only played one game of it, then thought, this is probably only worth it if I'm playing with other people.
In a world where that happens and you're playing with, say, 4 humans,
Yeah,
it's super frustrating.
yeah.
Like,
But
so,
at the same time,
not like if you're ahead and people are trying to pin you down, but like
yeah,
if you are at the bottom and everyone else is just dumping garbage on you,
yeah,
that can't be fun to play
yeah.
as a concept.
Yeah, I think there was, because you can do things like you can readjust everyone else's scores. So the idea is if you played one event on one of your family's cards that said something like, oh, you stubbed your toe, or something like that, and then you've got the minus scores, because there are kind of 3 symbols on the side of the card for places for points to go into. So there's a top, a middle, and a bottom. So when you play the clear card on top of another card, it might cover up some negative scores on that card whilst adding some positive scores to it. It's a neat little system, and the idea is you want to kill people off as soon as they've got a minus score. But yeah, it really didn't work out that way. It's something I really found punishing on the game. Can't say I recommend the digital version of it, but I've played the physical version of it before. Daryl, you have as well,
Yeah, I
and
don't
I
think I
think
played
I would.
Oh, sorry. I think I have two versions, but I've only actually played. I just think about it now. I haven't played the Cthulhu one, but I've played the normal one.
I've got Cthulhu Gloom.
I think it's the one I haven't played yet, but I've got the standard one. I like the game. I think aesthetically it's very
I
nice.
think it's great. It's a really neat game. I think a lot of it gets lost on the digital version of it. Like we were talking about, you build a story as you're playing these games. And
Yeah,
stuff.
100%.
And it's completely lost if you're looking for a game to just play against AI on Steam, basically. So it's kind of lost with that. So I can't say I can recommend the digital version. Definitely would recommend the physical version though. It's a neat game. It's a game that's just there for a laugh, really.
Yeah.
Would you say it's not really something you usually get too competitive about? But
No, it's more of those games where, like you say, you have fun in trying to create the story around why you're making your family so miserable.
yeah,
It's very like I don't know. It's like it's not like a dark comedy, I guess, because you're like, oh no, and then eventually he drowned, and it's like, like oh I didn't kill off this because of this, and I love the fact that you're forever trying to get someone else to be like happy. Like it's still a weird concept.
There's that whole brilliant thing of you could have this story about. I think one of the characters in the original one is a dog. I think
Yeah, there's
you can have
definitely a dog. There's definitely a dog.
that, like I said, stubbed his toe and then his goldfish died.
Yeah,
And
it's so good.
but he went to the circus and then was happy and died happy because of that one circus visit. It's kind of neat how you get little stories built around things like that. Just stupid little stories like that visit to the circus just made his life kind of thing, and then
Yeah.
died happy.
Man, what
Despite
happened
all
to
these
that
horrible
circus?
things that have happened before. Yeah. I don't know. There was I don't know. I don't know what happens in circuses these days.
I assume not a lot,
No,
because like all the bits of the circus that everyone loves are illegal now, right?
mostly. Yeah, I imagine you could still have the whole. There's still clowns, right?
Yeah,
And there's still
mostly.
like tightrope walkers.
I think it's like stunt shows and stuff. The only one circus I absolutely love is the Circus of Horrors, because that's not
Okay.
circus. It's more like it brands itself as like a freak show, which I absolutely love. Like people swallowing swords, people juggling like just ridiculous amounts of balls, contortionisms, stuff like that. So I love that kind of aspect of people doing weird
I
and
didn't know
wonderful
your mum
things.
was in the circus.
Yeah, that's all three of her pastimes that she likes doing. Weirdly though, she had to retire from
swallowing
swords,
long
sword swallowing.
objects.
Yeah, and fondling thousands of balls at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. God,
Okay.
my mum's a saint,
That's
by the way.
Gloom, everyone. Okay, Ian, you had a LARP meet recently, I
Yeah,
believe.
we did a little mini LARP meet we're I don't know how up to date. So like my current character is in Wintermark, which is like a not Viking nation.
This is in the Empire
It's
LARP
a
thing, right?
snowy Rohirrim nation with no horses. Is probably the
Yeah.
best way to describe part of it. We're looking to change to the Marchers, which are more
My lord.
English, Battle of Agincourt English, 100 Years War style pikemen, peasants eating potatoes style
I love them. Honestly, love
group
them.
instead. And it's that we've sort of fallen in love with the idea of joining that sort of nation. It's a bit more fun. There's a bit more to do as well because it's not as because Wintermark is by far the largest nation, and it's hard to get into any sort of game unless
Okay.
you're quite a not a well-known player, but if you properly stuck in. So we're looking at the marchers, and we've sort of put our kit together as sort of like a mixture of sort of Battle of Agincourt style longbowmen and sort of Rangers of Aphelion style archers sort of group.
You've
So we
got a
went to
very,
the
you got a very Ranger-esque feel. I think it's nice. It's nice.
yeah. I don't have all of my peasant gear yet though,
Mm.
so I've got like a peasant, what I would describe as a pants hat.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
That's due to arrive. You've got like a little peasant cap to go on top of the pants hat. I've got some sort of peasanty gear to go over it. But we went to the woods and basically just played with longbows for a bit, chatted. It was not a proper story or anything like that. We just chatted about cool things. But it was nice to catch up with people and sort of bounce ideas off each other and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like it's like everything. It's been affected, hasn't it, by the
Yes,
pandemic this year? So
they've all been cancelled so far, and there's one more in September, which I think, if everyone's honest, we're expecting to be cancelled as well.
yeah, yeah. It's looking like most kind of like mass meetups and stuff like that just aren't going to be plausible this year.
I mean, it's 2,000 people in the field. I can't imagine it'll be allowed.
I think there's that whole thing, isn't there? If they were to go ahead with it, there would be that whole discussion of should people be wearing masks, at which point it's kind of damaging to the experience, I would have thought.
I could definitely wear like a caul across my face and it'd be fine. I think some
Yeah.
characters could easily just have visors down and helmets and things like that, but
I think there'd be a way around it. Yeah. But I just feel like it
Yeah.
would take away. I don't know personally about you, but I remember when we did do it in the extreme heat in monsters, like uniforms and stuff, and wearing the masks, wearing
I think
another
that the
level.
main problem is going to be
Oof.
monstering because
It'd be horrible.
like there's a huge amount of masks, but it's shared, so like
Yeah.
they get disinfected and stuff between like battles and things, but you'd want to bring your own mask in that scenario, wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah. You
would
couldn't
probably
really.
think as well people would be forced into staying in their own tents rather than the shared experience that a lot of you guys have normally, right?
Yeah, I guess because I share a tent with Ree and Helen,
Yeah.
so I guess that would make it more difficult. I mean, Ree is relatively close, so I have actually seen her during lockdown.
Yeah.
But Helen lives in Bristol, so it sort of does make it more difficult at that point because we would be
There's lots of
breaking
people,
rules and stuff by doing that. It's
Yeah. It is difficult. You can certainly understand if it was to get cancelled this year, but you never know.
I think they've postponed all of the timeline of the actual LARP as well. So we're at a point now where if it were to go ahead in September, it'd be E1, which is like the winter solstice.
Right.
So it'd be as if it were the first event of the year, and it would kind of skew the game a little.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but I have a feeling they'll just cancel it and then they'll start E1 when it's supposed to be. It sort of makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
Oh, Sean got shot in the face by a bow. That was pretty funny. Sorry. Like it was couldn't have been more than 10 foot away.
Yeah.
Longbow, arrow. Like it was your rubber arrow as well, Daryl.
Oh,
not
the
not the
training
soft
one.
foam. Yeah, not the soft foam arrow.
Nice.
Oh, he took it straight in the face, hit him straight in the
They
nose.
you genuinely have to wear masks with those. Like
Yeah, well,
normally.
he he wasn't wearing a mask, hit him straight in the nose.
Oh god.
Oh God.
I've seen them do some serious damage to like people
He
in
took
the
it like
day.
a champ.
Fair
He
play
took
to
it
him.
like a champ. Yeah, like, but we were all there. Like, you could hear the sound of it slapping against his nose.
Whoa.
Oh God.
There was a serious
Jeez.
thud, and just like, oh, it was. I think it was hilarious, but there was
Guys.
slight worry about his his nose, whether it'd ever be the same.
I mean, he's had a lot of issues with. Did he get like punched in the nose when he was like boxing and stuff?
He's got a really like screwed up nose because he used to do boxing and things. Yeah, he like has sleep apnea because of it as well.
I
Oh
feel like at
wow.
this point it'd only improve it probably.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen.
Cures
It's
it,
going
just cures it.
to clear out some of the loose bone that's stuck up there.
Guys, I could breathe again.
It's a like a real kind of like Simpsons moment when
Yeah.
he falls onto the bin and it
Yeah.
readjusts his back.
My back.
Chiropractor
Yeah,
episode.
exactly
Oh,
that.
Man.
Exactly that.
Oh man.
We're going to start
Look.
shooting people in the face with sleep apnea, and all the doctors are going to come and break our bows.
Do you have a misshapen nose as a result of an accident? Just the advert of just people lining up with bows, just shooting at people with like skewed noses and stuff like that.
It'd have to be like a really quick montage of like 100 people getting really shot like hard in the face, like you know when you see those like things, just like and like out of 100 people, we've cured all 100, and just like I can finally breathe again, and like just bleeding out of their nose, like.
I've never felt so nasally free. It's just like in bits all over his face.
What an advert!
I just love the idea that on the advert it would have all those bits. Our special experts, and it's just people like drawing
just-
back on their bows and stuff.
It's just me picking my nose with the end of my bow.
Right, moving on. As much as I would love to carry that on, I have been playing a game called Yomi.
I know this game.
Sorry,
I know this game, and I've played this game.
is this the
I play this with
like
Callum.
it's a 2D? It's a 2D beat 'em up game, yeah.
With cards.
Yeah, with cards.
Yeah, I've played this with Callum,
Yeah.
and I own it on Steam.
Ah, okay, cool. Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of it myself. It's a real interesting one because Daryl, you played BattleCon.
Yeah, I
did
did.
show you that eventually.
You played it with
didn't
me,
I?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this tries to do a similar thing to that, but with cards instead. The idea being that it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors kind of system. You've got your attacks, you've got your throws, and then you've got your guards and blocks. So an attack will beat a throw will beat a block.
Yeah.
I don't think it beats a dodge, though. I can't remember. Actually, no, I think it does beat a dodge, doesn't it?
So an attack beats a throw.
Yeah.
A
And
throw,
a throw
beats
beats a block.
a block.
I can't remember if it beats a dodge or not, and I only played it like this afternoon.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've not played it for about 5 years.
Yeah, and the whole idea is that it goes into like real complexity. Like
There's
every
a lot of
attack
deck
has...
styles. Like
Yeah.
there's DLC for it on Steam to buy like all the extra decks.
Yeah, so yeah, each character has its own deck, its own unique deck. I think each character also has a power that's unique to them as well.
Yes.
But it's kind of like all the little details, like every attack has an attack speed. So if two people play attack cards, the one that attacks quickest will win the round and can then combo into playing more cards. So you've got things like you've got linkers, which basically help bridge your combo. You've got your enders, which can only be played at the end of a combo, and then you have some cards that can only be played as a starter, so they can only be played at the beginning of the combo. So the idea is when you successfully hit or throw someone, you can then start playing cards to extend out the amount of damage. But someone can play a card face down, and if it's a joker, all of the combos basically get voided. So there's a little bit of bluffing to it as well. It also like even puts in knockdowns and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
if someone gets knocked down, they can't dodge in the next turn, but also their block isn't quite as effective as well. You know, it replicates an awful lot of what actually happens in a 2D fighting game. You've got your aces as well that basically represent doing like a super move and stuff like that, which tend to be kind of like stacked to
It's
do
quite
more damage.
a Street Fighter-y art style as well, sort of anime
It is,
almost.
yes. Yeah. I actually really enjoyed it. I was I was certainly getting into it, but I always had in my mind at the same time, how does this compare to BattleCon? Because the one thing that BattleCon does that you don't really get in Yomi is BattleCon's very much about, because it's a board game, BattleCon, rather than a card game, you actually have a board and you have an arena in kind of like a strip. And a lot of the game is about thinking where you're placing on that board as well, which is very much, again, like a Street Fighter-ish type video game that it replicates really well. However, BattleCon, you can't fit into your pocket and take places. Whereas Yomi, in the physical board game of it, which is literally just a deck of cards, you can easily throw that in your pocket and you can take it just about anywhere.
Yeah, Callum has a few decks. I know he's got. I think it's called Setsuki.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like It's like a female character, and I feel like he's got the guy that wears blue, but I don't remember his name.
Oh, God, yeah. Graves something or something like that. I can't remember it exactly.
Yeah, he's super ripped. That guy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's quite a fun game. Like, it it's interesting because you don't ever have an advantage over your opponent, if that makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
like Pokemon where you could have a type advantage or something like that, or like you can't sort of have broken sort of decks. It's based off like a deck of cards, so like three of spades, aces, stuff like that. So you
Yes.
do have that sort of sense of equality, and it's just a case. There's a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill and a little bit of
Yeah.
figuring out what's going on, and it doesn't have that same level of like playing someone and going, that kind of deck is sort of broken.
Yeah. I mean, although the game is essentially played out like almost like a card game of rock, paper, scissors,
Yeah.
there are little things that you can pick up on. Like, for example, if you're lacking cards in your hand, quite often you'll feel like you have to block attacks because that allows you to both take your block card back into your hand but gain another card at the same time. So sometimes when you see someone's getting low on cards in their hand, you'll know they're probably going to be blocking. So there's things you can do, but at the same time, like, if you are in that situation, you actually might be thinking to yourself, they probably think I'm going to block, so I'm not going to. I'm going to do this instead. So
It's definitely a lot of mind games. So like playing the physical game,
yes,
especially when you've got someone sat the other side of the table with you. I've played it against Sean and Callum, and it is a case of sort of mind gaming them into thinking you're going to do one thing and doing another and double bluffing. It's crazy.
yeah, but for what is essentially playing with two decks of cards, they've packed a lot into it, which is very, very impressive. I would say it's a little overwhelming playing it for the first time because there is an awful lot of rules to this game, for what is essentially just two decks of cards fighting one another.
It's worth bearing in mind though that it is only a fiver at the minute.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So like, if you want to learn a cool new card game,
And I've really enjoyed my time with it. I would say that BattleCon is simpler, probably emulates fighting games better than this, and there is another game that came out recently that's very similar to Yomi that a lot of people enjoy because it's a very much a simplified version of it. Really depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that replicates a 2D fighting game better between the two, I think Yomi's actually better. I think a lot of the appeal it was called Combo Breaker or something like that. I believe it's very much a simplified version of it, which, whether that's a good or bad thing, is up to you. But a lot of the things about things like your knockdown game and things like that. They're more complicated elements of 2D fighting games that aren't in Combo Breaker but are in Yomi. I certainly think it's worth checking out because the characters, like we said earlier, are all very unique. They have, as in how they're drawn and stuff, they've actually drawn a really diverse cast of characters for it, which is really cool.
Including a man made of stone and a panda, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. And I think there's a werewolf man as well and stuff like that. Very cool. I've really enjoyed my time with it. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about Sumo Gnomes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
By Robbie Munn.
Oh yeah.
Which this is over a year in the making now. Like we played this, or you guys played this.
I
at,
assume
UK Game Expo.
a lot of this was put back by COVID to some extent. Was
Possibly.
the Kickstarter distribution put back a little bit? I would have thought so.
Actually,
I think
the Kickstarter edition, technically, we were... No, not necessarily. Because originally the plan was you could pick it up at the Game Expo. So it's not a massive... That's not a massive delay in terms of what's happened.
It was a different version, though, wasn't it?
It was going to be all of them. You could pick all of them up originally. So whatever your pledge was, that was the option. I know he had some other issues and stuff like that, which obviously I won't go into. But yeah, essentially it's done really well considering the time is kind of hard to get hold of things at the moment. But yeah, I think there's a few little delays with like packaging and stuff like that. But other than that, I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I've had a little bit of a chance to just play around with this with my parents, because one thing about this game is, God, it is incredibly easy to teach.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really easy to teach. I would go so far as to say this is almost the perfect game to play when you're waiting for other people to arrive at a game night, because the thing I've noticed about this is it is super punchy. For a game that's all about grappling and throwing, it's very punchy.
It's really bad. I was about to go. It's like chess light.
It kind of is like a sort of chess-esque game.
Doesn't do it justice, does it?
No.
Yeah.
It's got that element of tactical thinking behind it, but like it's quick and that you can quickly take advantage of your opponent's mistake if that's the case. It's not like chess where you have to sit for another 30 turns to finish it off. It's a quick game with quick satisfaction, but also a lot of tactical thinking, and yeah, I think it hits all the camps really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is why I think it is just the perfect game to bring out when everyone's sat around, you're waiting for people to arrive. It's like, let's play Sumo Gnomes, because we can play like 5 games of this in 10 minutes, kind of thing. And it's really good, too.
Unless you're me and Daryl, who sit there just rotating around each other for half an hour.
That's pretty much the game I had with it. It was more or less figuring out what you could do and what you couldn't do, and then eventually realizing, oh, the slam move with the grapple move is pretty much king.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing, is literally this game is, okay, I'll take a turn, you take a turn, I'll take a turn, boom, done. It's meant to be played in, is it best of 3 it says?
Yeah, 3 bouts, basically.
I think. Either way, each individual game could, you get some games of it where it genuinely lasts 30 seconds. Someone just has their dice rolled right. It's a case of go in, grapple, throw out kind of thing. I think it is impossible to throw someone out on the first turn.
Yeah, I don't
so in
think
other
it is
words,
possible.
Yeah, but turns are so quick, because essentially what you have is you have your 2 gnome pieces that are on the board, and they have to be set up diagonally from one another in the center area of the board. And then the idea is you have to throw out the other gnome. You do this by, first of all, rolling all 4 of your dice, reserving 2 of them, and then using the other 2. You take those 2 actions, which might be move orthogonically, then move diagonally, for example. Or you have the slam move, which is basically push someone back 1 square that's orthogonically adjacent to you. Grappling is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because at that point you can't slam someone. You have to break the grapple before you can start slamming one another again. So sometimes you may want to, especially at the beginning, focus more on moving and saving your two proper action dice for another time, so you know you've got that guaranteed for another round, basically. It's really interesting the way you kind of have to predict your future moves. I suppose this is where, like you say, it's a little comparable to chess, because a lot of it is very much reading the board in its current state and which actions you're going to save and which ones you're actually going to play immediately.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I say, for a game with that level of thinking and stuff, like thinking ahead, like you're thinking 2 moves ahead, it is incredibly simple to play. The rule sheet is literally 2 sides of, what would you say it is?
Well, it's not even
A5?
I wouldn't even say that. It's pretty much just it's like a sheet you sort of fold in half, don't you? It's very.
Yeah.
It's not.
Can we?
Essentially,
yeah, I don't know.
it's a reference sheet pretty much. Like you have your 6 actions that you have on each face of the die, and it explains what each one of those do. Because the rules of the game are simply you roll 2 dice, 4 if it's the first round of the game. You pick 2 of those actions to do and save the other 2, and that's literally it. Apart from that, you're just referencing what the actions actually do on the sheet. That's as simple as the game is, really, I would say, isn't it?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so. Like, there's
Can
a
we
couple
talk
of
about
like.
the quality of it as well? The board pieces itself.
Absolutely, yes.
So I remember talking to Robbie Munn with you guys at UK Games Expo and being like, man, I really want the wooden copy of this, because was he intending to sell it at that point?
No,
No.
he was
So
not.
apparently it was due to feedback. So it was always meant to be like a kind of little pocket game, which I think now it's got a drawstring bag to go with it. So for the standard edition, which is essentially beer mat sized, which we kind of both agreed that we're, like me and Steve were saying, we're probably still going to get that as a sort of take it to the pub kind of thing, because this one's more of a collector piece that you want to. It's
I
almost
think,
like.
well,
Go on.
I would not take this anywhere.
No, we fell
No.
in love with the wooden set whilst we were playing with it, didn't we? We just sort of thought it's so nice. I really want a copy of it where it's full wood and just like all the lovely little pieces. It's clearly so nicely made. Like that's what I found of anyway. I liked the game. The game was great, and I just loved how it looked and how it felt as well with all the little wooden pieces. Like I wasn't particularly interested in the travel edition
Oh, okay.
personally,
Interesting.
so that's not a slight on the game itself, because I really like it. But I felt like that if I wanted a copy, I wanted the really nice. I really liked the quality of the wooden copy, which is why I was so dead set when we'd talked to us. Like, oh man, I really want the wooden one.
I will say it's kind of like one of these things. If this is a game that I still want to take places, and I wouldn't feel comfortable taking such a nice piece with me everywhere.
Absolutely, but thankfully I've got 2 friends who are willing to buy the non-wooden copy.
That's true.
It makes my life a
You've
lot
got a point.
easier.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll get the normal version as well, because like I say, this is definitely one of those ones where you want to keep it at home and people will play it. It's almost like this is like the home edition that you're gonna like when everyone's sort of done their tournaments, you kind of want to bring them into the main arena, which is that kind of thing. Like it's like
this is the final.
It
Everything
is.
else was a lead up to this,
which is kind of
in the grand arena.
which is kind of the sort of feel it gives, because it is where the other ones are beer mat sized and it's on a miniaturized scale. It's still a good game, but like you say, it's almost like, okay guys, we're gonna have the final on the giant dojo, and you're like, all right, what is it? It's a giant
what's it
log.
called? It's,
Okay, I'm interested.
I think isn't it Korakuen Hall or something like that, where they have the big sumo event? Usually.
What, in Japan?
Like that's where you have the where they have the like grand finale. That's like the big sumo event in Japan.
Man,
And
I did
that
not
is-
know what many of those words you just said were. The what?
Korakuen Hall.
What does that
I
mean?
think it's just the name of the
it's like the
the
place.
arena where
Oh,
it
right,
all
I
happens
see.
in. I think that's the one. I could be very wrong about that, but yeah, I've visited it whilst I was in Japan. It was very cool. Very cool.
Did you
They
actually
had,
go and
like,
watch
a
it? Oh, you said you
little
didn't
museum.
watch it, did you? Because it was expensive as hell.
It's super expensive to go and watch sumo.
It's
Yeah,
their national sport, isn't it?
Yeah, but like they had the museum and stuff, like with the big kind of like Yokozuna ropes and stuff like that that they'd usually tie around them if they were the champion and stuff. Really cool. It was a really cool experience, but I would love to go and watch like some sumo matches. If ever I go back to Japan, I think that would be high on my list.
Oh, I
Should we do
definitely
a
be up
boys'
for
trip
do.
to Japan.
Don't tempt
Sorry?
us. Do not tempt us. We were only talking about this the other day, how we want to go back to Japan, me and him.
Boys' trip to
yeah.
Japan.
Oh, I would love that.
I tell you what,
Absolutely love that.
So
If
long
I
as
ever get
you're
married-
capable of putting up with me, because I hate flying.
Yeah, it is a long
I
flight.
hate it.
if you want, we
The one
could put
that-
you in with the dogs.
Wait, how would that help?
Like, you know,
What?
like vets, we could put him in like the cages down below and he could just be like sedated for the 90% of the trip.
I feel like that would be worse for him.
Just wakes up all groggy, like,
I went to New Zealand with Laura to look at all the Lord of the Rings places, mostly. And like she legit attempted to sedate me a few times. Like she was just like, please take this sleeping pill. And I'm like, no, I hate it. I don't. If I'm dying, I want to stare it in the face.
is that the thing? It's not boredom, it's fear.
I hate it. It's fear. It's the initial first like maybe 20 minutes, and then I settle in, and I can distract myself fairly easily.
Yeah.
And then if we ever get to a point of any turbulence, I'm like, nope, death is en route. Like, here it comes.
So
I'm ready to die.
I used to be like you, but like I used to like get travel sick wicked bad. Like so as soon as I could smell like the pre-made food, I would go. That's it. It would set me off super hard. I grew out of it, but the thing with the turbulence that like was kind of I guess cured it in a way. We flew into America as there was a hurricane coming, and
Oh my!
yeah,
Oh,
wait. And
no.
They had to fly us over Disney airspace, which apparently normally is like you cannot fly through Disney airspace. Disney has its own airspace and it's not allowed, right?
That's weird as hell.
Right. Even
Okay.
better. They took down the Magic Kingdom, so they can pop down the castle in emergencies.
What?
It's not due to hurricanes and stuff like that. Well, apparently it is some of that, but it's also I think in case of like bad people. Basically, they can take it down. So if they need to, like they can just pop it down. So that's what they were doing all day, just like popping down the Magic Kingdom. How mental was that? So we flew over Disney. It's
That is-
dark as hell. It's bumpy as hell. We're on the tail
That's
end
crazy.
or like the back end of a hurricane, and we're just like watching as like you can't see anything. You're just like, what's going on? They've given us permission to fly over Disney airspace. You're like, what? What? You're like, what's going on?
Dystopian world do we live in where
It's
Walt
crazy.
Disney has his own airspace?
It's absolutely crazy. And then like then
It's
we
for
were
the
like,
army they're raising.
Well, yeah.
Eventually, when they take everything over, you know,
Well, the
they don't
thing-
want people knowing
the
what
thing
they've
a
we
got.
were
dead man who's famous for an animated mouse who now controls 50% of the world's media owns his own airspace.
so the thing
This
that
terrifies
the,
me.
the question I had, and no one would answer it, is what if you flew into it unannounced? Would you be shot down, or would you be? Do Disney
the,
have
the
their own?
fireworks?
Yeah.
The fireworks they send up over the castle, and then like,
He like got Goofy there with a rocket launcher, ready to shoot everything down.
ho ho! The bogey has entered our airspace. Ho ho! Open fire!
Just like turret
rocket
AA guns, AA guns coming out of the Magic Kingdom's like castle, just like get it. No, it's
Oh,
crazy. So
man.
that is ever since then I've never had an issue because
Man, since they've got
That's
Star Wars
horrific.
and the Avengers, I mean, there's no way you're
Oh,
getting through
God.
that airspace without getting shot down by TIE fighters or Iron Man.
repulsor jets and Ion, that'd be so cool.
Oh man.
All they had before was Buzz Lightyear.
So yeah, So yeah,
Big Hero 6.
You think I could
People,
go up there?
people used to mock their Air Force, but now.
Oh, it's so good.
so yeah,
What were we talking
go
about?
out and buy Sumo Gnomes.
Sumo Gnomes.
Oh, yeah.
Great game.
Oh, sorry.
That's what we were talking
One
about.
little thing. Just
Sure.
on the thing. So the dice themselves of the gnomes are really, really cool. So on the top you've got like top down
Yeah.
view of the gnome, left view of the gnome, right, back, front. The bit I absolutely love, and I know it's just a stupid little thing, is the
Underneath.
bottom side of it, which would essentially be the undercarriage of said sumo gnome, just has censored etched into it.
Yeah.
There's no picture, just censored, and I absolutely love that as like an additional kind of just I don't know, just a little fun gimmick. I love it. It's great.
It's a nice little joke. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's so good.
Yeah. Hey, you can see what we mean as well on the unboxing video.
Smooth.
that we did recently for
Absolutely
Sumo Gnomes.
smooth.
There we go. Okay, moving on. I've got 2 more games to talk about. The first one is a really popular game that I've never played before, which was Sagrada. Have you guys ever seen this before? It's like a game about building a stained glass window.
No, that sounds kind of cool though.
It's really, really popular. Essentially, it's a dice drafting game. So everyone has their own unique board, which is distributed randomly at the beginning of the game. They'll have things like, you'll have a grid of squares on there that have to be filled over the course of the game. Some of them will have numbers on. Some of them will be filled in with a colour to suggest that you have to place dice of certain numbers on that space or dice of a certain colour on that space. At the beginning of the round, basically a pool of dice are rolled, and then you take in turns between players, taking one and then placing it on your grid. Essentially, it then represents you building a stained glass window. There's little things to it, like it's played over 10 rounds, and if by the 10th round you haven't placed a dice on a certain square, you get minus points at the end of it. There's bonus objectives for the game. You'll have one private one that the other player won't know, or the other players won't know. And then there are 3 global objectives, which can be things like have 5 different numbers in a row, and you'll score however many points at the end of the game for each row you have with unique numbers in that row. So it's a bit of a puzzle kind of a game. There's not very much interaction between the players. It is, however, quite fun. There's little things you can do, like, for example, you can always look over at what other people's play state is like and hate draft a dice just so someone else can't have it. But really, that's as much of the interaction you're really going to have in the game. So if you're really into games where you're forced to be a bit more competitive, you're probably not going to enjoy this one as much. But I really enjoyed my time with it, just with my own little puzzle and stuff. It's really, really simple, really, really easy to play. I think I would rather play a physical version of this compared to a digital version, which is what I played. I think when the basis of the game like revolves around rolling dice and things like that, I always like to have that tactility of actually doing it myself rather than watching a computer roll the dice for you. But yeah, I think I've certainly been finding since I've been playing digital board games that games that involve a lot of cards, I tend to prefer playing on the laptop compared to more kind of like standard board games and stuff like that. I think I'd prefer to have physical copies of it. But anyway, that's Sagrada. It's really simple. Really, there's not a lot else I can really talk about with it. There are like little rules when you're building your stained glass window. You can't have 2 dice of the same color next to one another, and you can't have dice that are the same number next to one another. You also have a number of tools as well, so you can actually manipulate the dice as well. So some of them might be you can flip a dice to the opposite side that it was rolled and use that one. However, they do tend to lose you points at the end of the game for every one of the tools you used over the course of the game. I think you only have a limited number of them that you can actually use as well. But yeah, I've certainly never not played another game like it. It's quite unique, and I really enjoyed playing it. So that's Sagrada. Again, that's a big recommend. I would still recommend the digital version as well. I would just say I think I'd prefer to have a physical copy of this game. Then the last thing I want to talk about, and I'm only going to briefly talk about this one because I didn't play it very much, and there was a reason for that, and that is the digital version of Tainted Grail.
Oh yeah.
The reason
Oh,
I
no.
didn't play a lot of it is because I am waiting for my physical copy of Tainted Grail still. Don't really want to spoil too much of it. And I have a feeling that the digital version of the game is very different to the board game, because this felt like it was a top-down RPG, if I'm perfectly honest. And then when you get into a fight with something, it turns into a card game. And I don't imagine the board game quite plays like that. I imagine. So I don't think it's very representative of what the board game's like, but it might be. I don't know. It might be just be a way of presenting how you move around and have stories told rather than flipping cards or something like that, which I think is how the narrative basically is followed in Tainted Grail, because it's very much a story-driven game. It's funny. I from what I remember, I think Tainted Grail is kind of like you're the B team kind of thing. It's a fantasy setting, and there's some apocalyptic event happening, and the great heroes have already been killed
That's
off
quite
by
funny.
this threat, and then you're kind of like the second line going after it. So there's a nice little twist
That's quite cool.
there, because usually in these games you're usually like a chosen one or something like that. But
Yeah,
I'm thinking Elder Scrolls Online, where every single person playing the game is a chosen one.
I am
but,
the chosen one. I am the chosen one.
I think there's an amazing Yahtzee skit that he did where there was basically a queue of people all lining up to talk to this one NPC that's telling every single person, "You are the chosen one, the person of legend," or something like that. As
yeah.
there's just like this queue of like hundreds of people waiting to talk to him. But yeah, I like the twist in Tainted Grail that you're not the big hero. You're like the second line. You're kind of like what we. You're,
You'll do.
you're what we have. Yeah, you're what we have. It's not what we wanted, but hey, go out and do the job for us, kind of thing. I like the idea of that. But hopefully, my physical copy of that will eventually turn up, and I'll be able to talk about it a bit more. I believe that's everything we've been playing these last 2 weeks. So, shall we move on to some news?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that then. Okay, first off, I will talk about probably the first Kickstarter I've backed, board game one anyway, for a while. That is Pitch and Plaques, which is a dexterity mini golf game, and I really love the look of this. There's just over a week left at the time of this podcast going out of this one. Essentially, you build your own mini golf courses. They're essentially these wooden pieces that all slot together, and you flick a golf ball round there. Looks really simple and fun. It is 100% wood. They very much say they are eco-friendly. It's funny because those pieces definitely look like plastic.
The red bits do, yeah, but apparently it's wood, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. But essentially they give you lots of little things, like you've got jumps for it, you've got volcano. I think there's like a slide kind of thing as well. So you can kind of like make your own like crazy golf kind of thing. You've got kind of like a bridge piece where you have to accurately flick the ball through the hole in the bridge, basically. This looks really neat, and I decided I want it because I think we've all really enjoyed our dexterity games over the last year or so.
Yeah, I
We've
would
been finding
say we're almost we always go back to them a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, but this one is already 100% funded. Certainly is going to be one of these games where you really don't have to explain any of the rules to anyone. You simply just flick a ball and keep track of how many shots it takes to get your ball in the hole.
Oi, oi.
So, yes.
Oi, oi, indeed.
I believe it's been created in Spain, I think.
Yeah, weirdly, it's not America or anything like that. It says Spain, I believe. Barcelona.
Yeah,
Barcelona.
Barcelona. But yep, this, like I say, this one's already fully funded and has just over a week left in it. Looks like a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm already looking forward to getting my copy. I kind of like the idea of actually being able to build your own course kind of thing, and doing that. I
I think
feel
it's
like
very
that's gonna be just as fun as actually playing the game itself, I imagine. So yeah, looking forward to that one. I will put links below if you would like to check out that Kickstarter. Ian, I believe you have some Warhammer to talk about.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it super brief because it's the same as every week.
Okay.
New Necrons, new Primaris Space Marines. As opposed to our previous weeks where I have been overtly critical. My only criticism this time is that you would place a superhuman on a bicycle.
What?
Basically, the four models that are getting the most attention, well, that got attention this week is a chaplain model, who, for those who don't know, are holy death priests with skull masks in power armor. And the tech marine, which is man who fixes stuff with big axe. But they both got new models, Primaris models, and they're both really, really, really nice models. But my only criticism is that the chaplain's on a bike,
Okay.
which I prefer not. I would prefer him on a jetpack or something, but that's a personal preference thing. The other models, which I'm so much more excited about, more for Daryl than anything else, is
Oh
the
boy.
Satan Shard.
Mm-mm-mm.
A Shard of Satan. Is it Shard of the Void Dragon? I think it was.
Yeah, maybe. Not that sure.
Basically, it looks like the Silver Surfer got hit with an Egyptian brick and then thrown through the Matrix, and it looks cool as hell. And then they've got, I think it's the Silent King,
The Silent King looks cool as hell.
which looks very cool indeed.
It's very much just a display model, I would find though, but I do love it.
Yeah, I think in general, all of the models have benefits. I don't know game-wise what their benefits would be, but I assume the Side of Satan will be super powerful, and so will the Silent King.
Yeah, probably.
Chaplains and Tech Marines will be super normal, I would imagine. But either way, cool models all round. We'll sort of leave it there. There's none this week that I'm going to be super critical of.
Okay. I'll pop
I
that
mean,
link again in the description.
There's
you
a
just
there's a
sent over.
lovely 4-bit picture with each model in it.
Okay.
Which I'm sure Steve will have at this point managed to cobble together on MS Paint. And
I don't know whether that will happen, but
well,
I'll certainly get something
someone might cobble it together on MS Paint and send it on Skype whilst talking.
Okay. All right then.
Other programs that allow you to chat to your friends over the internet are available.
Nice.
Man, I think that Silent King's gonna be huge.
Oh yeah, I see. That's cool. Which one?
The
sorry?
Silent King, I think that's gonna be huge because it's like, it's the guy and he's got like two sort of, I don't know what they are. They look like little weird small versions of Necron guards, and it looks like he's got a shard coming out the top of the, like his I don't even know what you want to call that. It looks like he's sucking the energy out the top half of a thingy shard. Very cool.
Yeah. Cool. Hang on, bear with me one moment, and I will talk about
Boom.
Stake My Games. So, Stonemaier Games are very much the kind of like the in publisher at the moment. They're the ones that have done Wingspan, Scythe in the past, Charterstone, Tapestry as well. Lots of really big name titles.
How do you feel about some of those games?
Honestly, the only one I don't get on with is Wingspan. So the others I am fine with. But they have made a couple of announcements as to their release schedule for the rest of the year. The first thing they announced, which should be out towards the end of August, is a game called Pendulum, which, interestingly, is a game played in real time. So it looks like it's a worker-driven game. Just to quote the release here, it says, players command their workers, execute stratagems, and expand the provinces in their domain in real time to gain resources and move up the 4 victory tracks: power, prestige, popularity, and legendary achievement. I don't know how chaotic that's going to be. If it's done in real time, is that to say that players aren't taking turns? I'm not 100% sure. It sounds kind of interesting. I mean, if you ask the masses anyway, generally Stonemaier very rarely put a foot wrong in terms of board game development. It does have the Automa factory to it, which suggests that they're doing their typical AI for single player modes, which I don't really enjoy. But it looks interesting. I'm certainly interested to see how it plays out, because you tend to find these games where arguments break out quite often, and if everything's being done in real time, you can imagine
There's going to be
that,
some hand slapping. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, well, whilst two people are breaking down in some sort of argument, other players around the board are going to take advantage of the situation and just kind of scooch ahead of them, you know? Yeah, it certainly is one I'm going to keep my eye on because it looks very interesting. But on top of that, they are working on a digital version of Viticulture, which is their very popular game about making wine. It's a game that I haven't played yet, but I've very much had my eye on, and I probably would say a digital version of it at the moment would go down very well, I think. So I'll certainly be keeping an eye on that, and they expect to have the Tuscany expansion out for that as well. My Little Scythe is getting an expansion to it called Pie in the Sky. Looks like it's adding kind of like airships and stuff like that to that. So that will be quite cool for people that are fans of that. But this is kind of interesting. Jamie Stegmaier, who owns Stonemaier Games, posted a survey in early July to gauge interest for an officially produced version of his roll and write game, Rolling Realms. So I've already seen this online. I haven't had a chance to try it yet. But it's kind of like a print and play version of, or not version, it's a print and play game that was released that is very, very popular. And it would be kind of nice to see a deluxe version of that released to the public. We've talked recently about Unbroken, which is a free to play, free print and play game that has a deluxe version released for it that's really nice and worth checking out. It'd kind of be nice to see this one as well. So a little bit more on Rolling Realms. I'll just quickly go through the release here that's coming from Board Game Geek. Says Rolling Realms features 9 mini-games, each inspired by a different Stonemaier game, and you use 3 of these realms per game, adding up the scores of 3 consecutive games to determine the overall winner. So again, this kind of like all ties into the fact that I said that Stonemaier games are incredibly popular anyway. So the idea of bringing elements of different games into this one is going to be hugely appealing to a lot of people. So expect a lot of people to get on board with that in the future. Okay. How are we doing for time? Because we have an audience question. Yeah, sure, we've got time for that. Let's take it then. Right. So, this week's question comes from Sean Beale, and he asks, what are your top quick and easy to learn games you'd recommend for keeping kids stuck indoors occupied?
So Sean Beale is Sean of I Got Hit in the Face by an Arrow fame.
That's nice.
As you can hear on podcast episode number 38. That's this podcast.
I was going to say, I lost track there. So something I mentioned to him when he briefly brought it up to me whilst we were talking the other day was Fro Burrito,
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
which I thought Daryl could talk more about because I know he's played and enjoys a lot.
So, Fro Burrito is, to be honest with you, I would say any of their games are one of those games you could probably jump in on with sort of kids that don't sort of find a lot of rules very, taxing, I guess you could say. So all these games have like kind of YouTube videos, which are a lot of them for a long time were voiced by, is it Yucky Yates from Archer? Do you remember Krieger?
Right.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Are they actually voiced by him?
yeah. So Krieger did
That's
the
amazing.
Exploding Kittens one. It's amazing if you get a chance to watch it because it's just like Krieger explaining a game, which I love. Sorry, for some reason, Steve, I thought you used to watch Archer, but never mind.
I did used to watch Archer, but I'm just drawing a blank. So.
Oh, it's basically
the
Krieger.
mad
It's
scientist.
Yeah, mad scientist. Krieger's voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
So a couple of them were done by him, and I think the rest were just done by the guys that made them. But it's essentially it's madness. You get these two kind of squishy burritos, which are a little bit. They're softer than a beanbag, I would say, but they still kind of can do a fair amount of damage to inside stuff. And then you'll get like a group of cards, and basically what you can do is you just have to like throw a card you don't need to your left next person basically, and it just becomes this massive cards, and the whole point is it's meant to be completely chaotic, and you're trying to match up triples. So once you match up triples of just normal generic cards, that's points. You save them, put them to the side. Once you match up one of the three, I think it's Burrito Brawl, Burrito Duel, and Burrito War, they incite like some sort of form of the burrito challenges. So my favourite one is Duel because you go back to back and you actually do it like a gentleman's duel. You walk as far as you can. It's usually 3 paces depending on the room size, but 3 to 5 paces, a turn round, and then you draw and you throw the burrito as hard as possible at the other person, which I love. I think that's really, really fun. The war one is crazy because you can essentially use any other object as a defense, even another player. So you're bouncing around behind like tables, chairs, other people, and using them as essentially a wall thing. And if no one gets hit, you just got to keep picking them up and keep going till it's dodgeable. Yeah, honestly, 10 out of 10 on that game for just stupidness. It's fun. It's a very good party game. So I think any of those kind of games aren't necessarily tailored to too much rules. They're very easy to play. There's a little bit of sort of not card drafting, but there's a lot of card play on it, and there's also sort of a dexterity kind of physical element, so it keeps you on your toes a little bit. It's a nice mixture.
Cool.
So I would also recommend Champions of the Wild.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Just because it's like Uno, which I know kids really enjoy. Not Uno. It's not. What am I talking about? Top Trumps.
Okay, yeah.
Am I going mad? Have I just descended into madness?
It's
like Top Trumps, but like
Yeah, it is like
in
Top
a
Trumps,
way
yeah.
that has like an actual structural format. So like there's not enough rules to get confusing, but enough rules to make it an actual game.
Yeah. And you just get to argue for a little while, basically. Yeah, and state your case. It is a debate game, pretty much. You select which animal you think will win this event, and then you argue why it would win the event, and everyone gets to vote.
And the fact that
So, yeah.
you guys don't think an ostrich would win a downhill mud race
Oh
is
my god,
criminal.
dude, come on, get over it. Like, we had better animals than you. It was never gonna happen. It's clearly gonna lose its footing and just slide face first into mud. And then,
You're
admittedly,
just wrong.
no, we used
Didn't I
Google.
have? I swear I played a manta ray for that, which is essentially nature's sled.
Yeah, it's just gonna slide on down.
I'm not saying that the manta ray is worse. I'm saying that the ostrich was not worst.
Okay. Did we vote it worse? Did
Yeah, I was furious. I was
I
like,
can't
no
remember.
one voted for the ostrich, and I was like, come on, it's so quick.
It is quick, but we agreed that it would be quick going on a flat surface, going
No,
downhill on a mudslide.
we did not
As a
agree.
democracy.
We all know that everybody dice is not a democracy.
It definitely is. It's just.
We all buy for Steve's favour, and then we all hate on games he hates.
Oh god.
Dear.
Personally, I hate bird watching.
So I really like the idea that if Steve's the king, you're definitely the war advisor, and I'm assuming I'm just the jester. Like, there's no other way around it.
Yeah. I think I've got one suggestion for this question, I think. I think the crypto wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
It is a word game, and it's sometimes difficult to get kids to engage in word games. That's my.
I
But-
think that's why I didn't pick letter jam, because they
Yeah.
have to actively think of a word, whereas the crypto is more about thinking of a word that links to a predetermined word without giving too much away. So maybe the deductive side of it, where you're trying to work out what word the other team has, might be a little much for that, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, working with kids, you're going to want a game where everybody feels like they've won at some point.
Ooh, Railroad Inc.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Little one, you're just drawing railways as they come up on the dice.
Kids
That's
just sort of hate
essentially it.
losing, don't they?
Yeah, I was trying to think of like team games and things like
Yeah.
that might work quite well for
I,
it.
I,
Maybe Team 3?
yeah, Team 3 would be quite a good one, I
Maybe.
think. I would say a couple of dexterity
Yeah,
games.
that's not a bad shout, actually.
Like, I would say probably Men at Work would be quite a
Yeah.
good fun one, because it's more of it doesn't matter that you're losing or winning. That game's a very much just the joy of taking part and seeing the crazy things you can make, and it's a nice creativity one as well. Probably even yeah, I'd probably say even it's probably one of the better ones for that, just purely based on the fact that the rules again are super simple. It's really easy to pick up. It's very nicely color coded as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's also the fun of trying to force someone else to fall. Not your turn, obviously, because you don't want to mess it up, but trying to make the next person try and balance something on there. The dude with like the two beams on his hands, and you're like, oh god, how am I going to do this?
So, this definitely came up when I was talking to him as well.
Mm.
I definitely
What was
meant.
that?
I definitely
Oh, what,
meant.
that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it is quite difficult, really, because
I think when you're working with younger kids, I guess it's sort of a part of it is attention span, and part of it is how well are they going to take potentially a competitive game they might win or lose.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
I think
I think that's it. It's like cooperative games and stuff like that might be a good route to go down. But I'm struggling to think of a cooperative game that's quite simple. I certainly like usually when I'm trying to think of a cooperative game that's quite simple, one of the games I'd usually go to is Chronicles of Crime, but I absolutely would not recommend that, really.
Not for a group of kids. Gee,
Nope.
No way.
actually,
Bad enough playing it with my wife.
if the Chronicles of Crime, the kids on bicycles one was a full experience, I think it wouldn't be so bad, because the kids. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
heard some really weird shouting.
What?
Never mind. Sorry, I just heard some really weird shouting. I wonder what it was. I thought someone was invading the house, but never mind. Yeah, Chronicles of Crime. I would say the third one is probably the least crimey, I guess you could say. Like, themed wise, but again, it's not a full
Yeah.
experience. So
I still feel as if it probably wouldn't go down too well. I don't think.
I
With
think theme
kids, I
wise,
don't
it
think.
can be a bit dark,
Yeah.
and playing wise, it can be a bit.
dark.
I mean, yeah, but I think not complicated, but it takes like a weird kind of train of thought and reasoning to get to certain bits.
I guess.
So I don't know whether kids would necessarily put two and two together for certain things.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing as well is
Yeah.
like it's very app based. Well, it is app based, so I guess it's whether or not you want them to be having access to their phones the whole time, or if you're trying to kind of get them away from that and make them play something a bit more like in real life kind of thing. But I don't know.
I think stuff.
Yeah.
Frovo Burrito was the first thing I went to because it's sort of active,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids just have
Actually,
energy to burn.
I tell you what, they've just released because it was the Kickstarter version originally, but they've actually just released within the last not even I think it's this month. They've released the outdoor edition as well. So it's 3-foot inflatable burritos, oversized waterproof cards. So I love the fact that there's this aspect now, and you could take it outside. Like obviously the wind, I think, would be a massive issue with the 3-foot burritos, but yeah. So there's a nice option now, and it's not that expensive for the like the bigger edition to take it outside into a garden or like a field or a play area, and just kind of just have this huge social game. Because the idea with them as well is if you get a couple of if you get a couple of boxes, you can like double up the playing amount. So you can essentially have a huge burrito war, which would be so fun. I can't think of anything more fun right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. If you have one of your own, you can send it to mailbag@everybodydice or tweet a question. excuse me, as on everybodydice on Twitter. We have a big topic to cover. Shall we do that?
Yes.
I was thinking we
Okay.
use something that we can put in the fridge with the topic, so that it doesn't go funny.
You mean
Okay.
Like an enormous chocolate bar tarpaulin.
why would you want to
This
put the
again.
topic in the fridge though? Because like
I
let's
like my chocolate in the
I
fridge.
like chocolate cold.
Yeah,
actually. Yeah. I agree
but
with Ian
the
here.
topic's quite a hard chocolate regardless, isn't it? It's quite a sort of rigidy kind of chocolate. I feel like you put it in there, it's just going to be like teeth breaking.
Where do you store your topic bars?
I don't actually eat topic bars, to be honest with you. I cannot think of the
In
last
the bin,
time.
because they're the worst.
I cannot think of the last time I had a topic bar. It's definitely not my choice.
No, I don't think it's many people's choice.
Didn't they used to be in celebrations?
Yeah, they took them out, didn't they?
Yeah, because they're garbage.
Mind you, which year was it when I think it might have been Heroes, where 50% of the chocolate bars in there were just different variations of dairy milk.
They're still better than Bounty.
It's just, I don't mind.
Oh, I love a
Bounty.
Bounty.
Yeah, I know you two like a Bounty
It's
because we've
so good.
given like celebration
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff before.
Yeah.
Or was it Heroes, isn't it?
It was
Is it
celebration.
No, it's celebrations. And
Yeah.
I just chucked the bounties at you two.
See, this is the best part. This
Yeah.
is the best part. There's very few people that like bounties, and me and Steve are one of them.
For me, it's like
So we can
for me,
hoover
it's
them
like,
up.
If you're hungry, you eat a galaxy or something like that.
Something with
but,
texture, I
but
suppose.
if you're legitimately starving, you probably would eat the bounty.
Legitimately starving.
And
Well,
I'm
yeah.
very rarely legitimately starving at the point where I'm offered a bounty. I don't dislike them. I just think everything else in the pack is better.
I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that me and you go into some sort of survival experience where the only food I have is a bounty, and I just have to hover it around you and see how long it takes for you to go, can I have that bounty?
Well, in fairness, Ian did just say it's not that he doesn't like bounties; it's that it's the least appealing out of all of it. So surely he would just have part of the bounty. It wouldn't take much
I don't
convincing if that
know.
was the only food around, I imagine.
I don't know. I still think he'd have this
No,
like
it
kind of
wouldn't. I'd be
pride.
fine with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not here.
Anyway.
Straight up.
Like, I think you're completely overarching the idea that I'm completely opposed to them. I just think that so few people like them, and even a lot of people that do bear them are like, yeah, they're not my favourite.
Oh wow.
So, before people actually get confused over whether the big topic is about us talking about chocolate bars this week, we did actually have 3 choices that our patrons chose between. The options this week were: which board games would you play outdoors? At which point do you decide to sell a game? Or which one this time around? How do you decide which board games to buy? Now, if you would like to participate in the next week's poll, you can do at patreon.com/everybodydice, and for as little as $1 a month, you can take part in these polls every 2 weeks. So yeah, how do you decide which
So
board games you're
basically,
going
if
to
you
buy?
look at the box of pretty much any board game, if you scan
Yeah.
it from either back to front or whatever, if you look over it, usually at some point somewhere on one of the board games you look at, there'll be this little symbol, and it says Star Wars. And when you see that,
Jesus
that is when I
Christ.
buy a board
He's
game.
not even wrong. He's not even wrong. Actually, no. That is actually.
I
There's
just
one
can't
you
stop.
haven't. There's a couple you haven't, but you haven't bought Outer Rim.
No, because Steve's got
I
it.
feel
I
I feel like
intend to
play
Outer
it
Rim
at
would have
one
been
point with
definitely the
Steve.
one you would have got, but yeah, you're definitely right with the rest of them, especially miniatures wise.
Like, legitimately, the only miniatures game I haven't bought with the Star Wars label on it is Armada, and that's only because I don't want to buy Armada and just play it by myself.
Yeah, true. Or
Did you get Rebellion?
I
no, that's the big one. Isn't
haven't got Rebellion.
it? I
It's on my
have
list.
both of those games
Yeah.
and have as of yet unsealed them.
Oh
Yep.
wow, okay.
Yep.
Um,
Crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of like it's weird now. In terms of buying board games, I buy whatever the patrons decide we need to review next, basically. But away from that, I still do buy other board games as well, obviously.
I think it's worth adding an element of sensibility to what I said, which is if you like an IP, yeah, there's an element that you might enjoy the theme and as such the game that goes with it.
I would say I'm the opposite to that, I would say. There's been plenty of stuff that I've... Like, for example, with the pirate board game thing.
Oh god, yeah.
It was only recently that I actually finally bought a pirate board game, which is Forgotten Waters. And the reason I bought that was because I watched a couple of reviews on it, and they came off very, very well. So I tend to find that's the best. That's how I judge it. I tend to research around a bit. I don't tend to jump into board games based on the theme. Like I say, there are pirate board games out there, and I held off for a while because none of them were like the definitive pirate board game that I wanted. I certainly find that's the best way of doing it, is just find a couple of people that have opinions that kind of line up with your own, and judge off of that, I would say, is probably the best way. But the thing is, if you're a fan of a particular IP, then chances are you're going to get at least some measure of enjoyment out of it. And do you know what? I'm just as guilty with it from time to time, because I bought the Big Trouble in Little China board game, which I would honestly say is not a great board game. But
Thematically,
I enjoy having it.
Yeah.
The themes and the quotes and stuff like that are worth having it for. It's just funny. It's funny to play and have.
I think...
But it's worth also noting that our first experience of that board game wasn't amazing.
Yeah.
And you still went and bought it, even though it's £100 board game.
Yeah.
So
and really enjoyed playing it when we played it.
Let's rewind roughly 5 minutes where this man legitimately told us that he's not affected by that.
I don't tend to, is what I was saying. And in fairness, I don't really. Like, there's been lots of board games that have had IPs that I'm interested in that I haven't bought because, well, just opinion on them doesn't seem to be that they're that good. I think Big Trouble in Little China is just one of those things where it's such an odd choice to make a board game out of. I think,
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
years after the film had ever come out, and I'm a huge mark for
Those kind of.
anything John Carpenter anyway. So yeah, I suppose that is a bit. Like I say, there will be a couple of things that slip through the net, but looking through my collection, there's not an awful lot of franchised games that I have.
Die Hard board game.
That actually was part of the
There's a
Patreon
poll on
poll.
it.
Yeah, and it's now in my
To sell.
So
pile of
you're
games to get rid
just
of.
going to go ahead and blame that on all of the guys listening.
Yeah, pretty much. That's your fault. You made me do that.
I enjoyed the Die Hard game. It was good.
It was okay. It's not a game I can see myself really going back and playing again, to be honest with you.
Trying to think. We played it a couple of times, didn't we? Did the bad guys ever succeed? Yes. Me and you,
Yeah.
as the baddie, succeeded against someone.
Wasn't
Sure.
against, I think it might have been against Mike. Oh no, it was against Sean. Yeah, it was against Sean. It was me, you, and Mike against Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Excuse me.
I
Um,
don't know.
but yeah,
I think for me,
I mean, what about you, Daryl? How do you
yeah.
pick your board?
See, this is the problem. I'm a bit of a sucker for everything in a way. Theme wise, like again, like Ian in a way. If it's got Star Wars on it, Lord of the Rings on it, whatever. If it's got that kind of theme to it, I will probably like be interested in it. I tend to find as well. It sounds really stupid. I guess it's the fact that I know it's good. It's a good enough game that it's sold out. If a game sells out very quickly and it's almost hard to get hold of, I find that my interest in it peaks a lot more. So three cases of this I can say even more. The first one was Star Wars Destiny. So I learnt about it sort of after the fact it came out, which was, let's say, it was December of one year, and I learnt about it January. From that point on, I was kind of like, "Oh, this game's kind of interesting." You know, like people are talking about it, and it's disappeared, and it's like it's impossible to get hold of. And I was like, "Wow, okay, this is obviously got something going on about it." So I'll look into it, and then I'll spend a bit more time watching videos and people playing it, and I'll start going, "Oh, Jesus, that dice mechanic's incredible! Like, I love that." It's a card game with dice mechanics, you know, which really control the. So I think that was like my first kind of instance was that. I then found. Actually, I think these are all Fantasy Flight games. Now I think about it. The sort of the second type one was the Marvel Champions game. So again, very much it was available. I sort of saw it a couple of times for it's another card game. Will I play it? People start talking about it. It starts getting harder to get hold of. I start looking at it more. I'm like, oh, actually, do you know what? Like, it's really cool because it's got the original concepts rather than like the new Marvel films and stuff like that. So, it's kind of cool. Again, heavily got into that. Actually, quite a good game. And then the Arkham one. The Arkham one's hard to get hold of, and then you mentioned it. I kind of went, oh, do you know what? I like the theme. We've been playing some sort of D&D-esque stuff with like a Cthulhu theme to it, and I was like, do you know what? I'll give it a go. So I'm very much a sucker for anything that's at the time I'm thematically pulled in by, and also if it's incredibly hard to get hold of, I'm suddenly like, I won't pay over the odds, but I will suddenly sort of go, actually this thing could be worth looking into, and it looks something I might enjoy. Yeah, like, so at the moment I'm hyping hard on Legion, super hard, where I had the core set. I had the chance to buy the new core set. I didn't, and now it's unavailable. My attention is completely and utterly on it. Whereas before, like, sort of prior to lockdown and in between lockdown, it was Warhammer because Warhammer was hard to get a hold of. So it's very much if something's hard to get a hold of, I start putting so much attention in watching stuff about it and reading up about it and trying to get myself sort of like into that theme.
So, in regards to advice for people who might be listening, if something might be perceived as rare because it's been sold out either artificially or not, Daryl says buy it because some dirty urge within him makes him want things that people can't get.
Yeah, kind of. But having said that, depending on your feelings towards each one, obviously Warhammer's a bit of a controversial one, but all of the things that have been out of stock have genuinely been quite satisfactory for me to play. I mean, we could all agree on Star Wars Destiny was pretty good.
Yeah.
Me and sort of Steve are quite hyping up on the like Arkham stuff. So like the games are quite decent. Some of them are really really good. It's more the fact that at the moment obviously stuff's hard to get hold of because it's hard to get hold of. But that initial, I think when it's that initial they bring it out, it sells out. You kind of know that there's a winner in there, that enough people have bought it and they're planning on doing more to it.
I mean, companies are artificially doing that now
Yeah, I
in
guess
order to make the things that they have look more sought after.
I guess probably nowadays not so much, but like definitely with Star Wars Destiny, I found there was a lot of they weren't anticipating the pull of it, and it did seem quite hard to get hold of a lot of the stuff for quite a while. Um, it's just a shame that it kind of got a bit, after a while. But initially, when we all played it, we all said it was a good game. Like we all saw ourselves sort of building decks and building into it and kind of buying onto it and stuff like that, and it became more readily available as time went on. I think it's not fair on the companies doing that, but yeah, I can see what you mean. But for me, yeah, to be honest with you, like I said earlier on, I've got Star Wars Armada, I've got Star Wars Rebellion, both X-wings. It's stuff. It's like that. It's very much I'm like a massive sucker for Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, anything like that. So it's very difficult for me not to. The stuff I won't get purely based on the fact that the initial cost seems like stupid. Like I do really like the look of the Marvel miniatures game, Crisis Protocol.
Mm.
I just the
Yeah.
starter set seems okay. I just think the price of the other stuff seems expensive. It's very much like the night. Is it night miniatures? Night models? Night miniatures, one of those ones where the figures are quite expensive for what you get, and they're nicely sculpted. But I feel like, oh, I'd love to make an army with the Hulk and some other people and some Shield people, and then you like before you look at it, you've paid like nearly the same price as the starter set. So yeah, very much for me, it's still probably theme, I would say, and also if it's out of stock.
It's funny because I kind of feel like we've got two completely different schools of thought here. Obviously, you guys are saying theme is the way to go. I'm very much saying theme isn't the way to go. I think theme will get you an enjoyable game. I think the point I would make though is like one of my favourite games is Gugong. I would have never bought that game based on the theme. Never. Ali Bari is another one that I've really enjoyed over time. Again, would not have bought. I wouldn't have bought a game based on the tea trade in India before. Patchwork is a brilliant two-player game about making a quilt, and I would have never bought that based on theme. So I don't think theme should be the be-all and end-all. Definitely not. I think if you're looking at getting into board gaming as a hobby, I think personally I would say reviews are the way to go, and judging for yourself based on how the games play and stuff like that. But at the same time, I see it from your point of view as well. Of if you do buy into theme, you're probably going to enjoy the game either way, whether it's a good game or not. Basically,
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm kind of looking
there
forward
is
to
that.
seeing the reviews of if it ever comes out on the back end of your Big Trouble in Little China. I want to see if the Evil Dead 2 game is any good. Like when it
Yeah,
eventually
the
comes
one
out.
that will finally be
Yeah,
released after that just
horribles. Yeah,
terrible original Kickstarter. Hopefully it can redeem itself. That would be kind of cool if it
yeah,
does, because I love Evil Dead,
exactly.
but
This is the thing.
hell, I ain't gonna back that Kickstarter.
No,
God, it's too poisonous for my liking. So yeah. Anyway, on that, thank you very much for joining us. If you would like to check out more of our stuff, you can find everything at everybodydice.com. If you'd like to follow us on the social medias, you can on Twitter at everybodydice and on Instagram at everybodydice we also have a Facebook page. You can find it at facebook.com/everybodydice. If you really enjoy what we do, we have a Patreon, so you can throw a couple of bucks our way if you really fancy it. That is at patreon.com/everybodydice, and you can take part on the various polls we do, as well as gaining access to the Discord channel, things like that. Thank you very much for joining us. There should be some videos on screen around here right now.
That's right, Stephen. You
And
poke at them.
hopefully, and hopefully you will join us next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.